Here's the last of the Outsiders plus First Dog on the Moon, 30th of November 2014.
You know what you're doing. Now, the federal budget has a real repair job. I mean, we are simply out spending more than we earn, if you like, and the Abbott government didn't prosecute that sufficiently early on, and now it seems as though they just want to muck about with us for no good reason. Well, there's a good reason. So they'll have to go back round and resell, but so they may have to apply some more pressure on those independent senators by racking up some double dissolution bills, not to use them so much, but to focus the minds that there is a job at work. And look, hey, it's first year. We have a long
indeed. There is. But Anne-Marie Tiernan, I mean, yes, first year, but the habits of how the government is going about its business seem, pretty entrenched, and we speak about that centralisation of authority and so forth. I mean, how hard is it to change that? And is something like this Victorian result a good thing in that sense? It provides that potential for a circuit breaker for the prompt that you need.
Yeah, I think that's important, Jonathan. I think, but what is the critical factor is their capacity to draw a lesson. And their willingness to draw a lesson. And it seems to me that a lot of the problems that the government is having are about process, are about coordination, are about discipline and communication internally, not just externally. So I think the cabinet process is obviously something that needs a bit of overhauling. And I read in Paul Kelly's piece yesterday in The Australian that the Prime Minister had written to ministers about the cabinet process. Well, I think it's very revealing. And I don't think it's just in Victoria, and I don't think it's just in the Commonwealth now. There is something that correlates to the unwillingness to engage with the public service, who actually are the masters of process and can help governments to do this stuff well. So I think if you look at some of this volatility and the lack of agenda setting and priority setting, a lot of it is about the stuff that the public service could help you with, if only you'd get over your tribal anxieties and engage them properly.
Well, and there's been that historic thing to make the public service subservient, politicised and anxious. Whereas, in fact, yes, it can help. I mean, the great strength of our system of government is to have a robust bureaucracy which works in hand with government and propels a considered and trans-term policy agenda.
Exactly, and that's the argument we make in the Gatekeepers book, is that the prime ministers and premiers have given themselves a problem by not being willing to engage on the process and the management aspects with the public service. And I think officials are keen to serve, but if they're not part of the conversation, you end up with some of the difficulties that we're seeing governments all over Australia facing.
That's a fairly deep solution. Tim Burrows, I think it's appropriate, and didn't want to finish this without mention briefly of the extraordinary national mood shift around the death of Philip Hughes. It's very sad, but the effect has been so profound. Did that surprise you?
It did. There was a really good piece written by Joe Hildebrand in the Telegraph in Sydney yesterday, sort of making that point. It's very easy to make that kind of sort of cold point around, there are many, many tragic deaths every day. Why wasn't this one moved us? And he made the case very well. It's in part it's because it's so close to, it's a national game. It's part of the national psyche. But also it's when we can relate to it. When we think in some way, this could be somebody we know. This could be us in some way. That's where it's a very human thing to hit home, regardless of the logic of one terrible tragedy moving somebody more than another. The fact is everyone's been terribly moved by this one, and I'm not sure yet I fully understand why I feel so moved by this, but I think most people do.
How does it strike you, Gary Johns? I mean, it's the things of bats and balls in doorstops around the country. It's quite an extraordinary outpouring, although we seem to be given to those things these days.
Yeah. Well, I love sport and I love playing sport, so it means a great deal to me. And I think Australia is a very sporting nation, and the poor devil died literally at the crease. I mean, that's just shocking. It does happen. It's so rare, and he was such a delightful player that I don't know. It's just very upsetting.
It's indisputably a an exceptionally sad thing. Well, I think one of the things that I took something from through a week that somebody did, and again on Twitter, said that it's a tremendous sadness, but his last conscious thought, his last apprehension of the world would have been doing the thing that he utterly loved the most, which is not nothing. On that note, we say thank you to our outsiders for this morning and for your contributions. Dr. Gary Johns, Minister of the Crown at one stage, now Director of the Australian Institute for Progress. Anne-Marie Tiernan, Associate Professor in the School of Government and International Relations at Griffith University, co-author of the book she referred to, The Gatekeepers, and Tim Burrows, Content Director for Mumbrella. Almost 4 minutes to 10.
Somewhere in the Caribbean, 1764, the ABC frigate, HMS Mrs. Mark Scott, is en route to Portsmouth with a cargo of breadfruit and aging lesbian content creators. Captain, on the horizon, a sail, look there, after midstern. Captain boy, bring me a telescope. Here you are, sir. Thank you, Yeoman. Oh, heavens, it's a pirate ship. We'll have to fight, sir. All right, number one, prepare the cannons. Oh, we can't get to the cannons, sir. They're doing yoga on the gun deck. We'll have to run for it. Full ahead, both. Sir, we don't have engines. This is a 3-mast, 104-gun, first-rate ship of the line. Engines would be a breach of our charter obligations. Oh, all right. Well, do that thing to the sails to make it go faster. Do that thing to the sails to make it go faster. Do you mean podcasting, sir? Don't be ridiculous. That would be a flagrant infringement on activities that should rightfully be the providence of purely commercial providers. They're catching up to us, Captain. They'll keel haul us. They'll cut our budget. Well, more of an efficiency dividend, but we're just too slow. Oh, it's all the enormous leave balances, sir. They're slowing us down. And the artisanal cheese. We need to lighten the ship. What dead weight have we got?
And welcome, beloved listeners, to the Little Wireless program.
No, not Philip. I know. Bring up the pig!
I'm Peppa Pig.
Over she goes. They're still gaining on us, sir. I can make them out now. Oh, no. It's the dreaded Captain Abbott. Or as he's better known, Blue Balls the Pirate, aboard his mighty 3-decker, the good ship Pinus. Weren't they supposed to be in dry dock having their bottom scraped? I beg your pardon? Having the barnacles removed, sir. Obviously they haven't. I can see Barnaby Joyce on the poop deck, and that bowsprit is covered in Brandis. Ew. Prepare to repel boarders. How do you repel boarders, sir? Stop changing the bed linen. Oh, you realise that joke was first used on the Goon Show in 1964? Well, yes, of course. We can't afford any new jokes. This is the ABC. Oh, look, sir. They've stopped, sir. They're just going round in circles. There's some sort of scuffle on the quarterdeck. They're fighting amongst themselves, sir. Good heavens, they're going down. Their ship is sinking. Well, I don't know who built that ship, but yes, sir, I wouldn't even trust them to build a canoe. This has been First Dog on the Moon's Guide to Modern Living, brought to you by the First Dog on the Moon Institute.
That was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Particularly the reference to the couldn't build a canoe, which is what the Australian Minister for Defence said about the Australian government boat building workshop in South Australia. The ones who built the Collins-class submarines with the earphone shattering hydrophone destroying supremely loud engine noises so that they're never able to hide in any ocean anywhere in the world. But to return to the major theme of this week's broadcast, which seems to have been the 25-year-old bloke who was wearing a cricketer's crash helmet when he got hit behind and below his ear, and it sort of smashed the bottom end and, well, the top end of his neck's arteries and crushed his skull and allowed him to get a subarachnoid hemorrhage and fall to the ground unconscious, whereupon a whole bunch of well-meaning people gave him cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which means, trying to keep the blood pressure up so that more blood could get pumped harder and further into his subarachnoid space and squeeze his brain the harder. They didn't really know that at the time, but, you know, that's one of the things that happened. And here's this bloke, 25 years old. Everybody says he was right at the top of his game. Me, I haven't got a clue. Never heard of him before he made the news when he got hit by a cricket ball, because I don't do sport. You know, sport is for people who enjoy thinking in groups. Cricket in particular is a British war game which enabled their empire to take over the world. It specialises in having, you know, your leader and your deputy leader and your bunch of cannon fodder, but it also has this format which causes people to have interminable periods of mindless boredom, briefly interrupted by random moments of terror, which, you know, requires them to stand there on the field in the sun for hours, pay attention to what's going on a long way away, not daydream, so that when the cricket ball gets hit off the batsman's bat and it comes towards their face, they are supposed to not duck, not dodge. They're supposed to reach out and catch it. And it'll hit them on the hands, no gloves, and it'll be doing in excess of 100 miles an hour when it hits them. As if that wasn't enough to make it, you know, good training for battle. There's also the idea that every now and then it's your turn to do or die, and you get to go and stand there with your stick of wood 22 yards away from where somebody is going to throw a half-pound projectile, ostensibly at 3 sticks of wood that you're not allowed to stand in front of. You have to stand to one side of it. But because they spend years practicing how to do this, they can throw it in such a way that the ball hits the ground. It must hit the ground before it gets to you. So it can hit the ground very close to you and then bounce straight up and hit you in the head. Back in the 1930s, the English couldn't think of any other way to win their cricket games against the Australians. So they introduced a thing called body line, which meant the bowlers deliberately tried to hit the batsman and physically knock them out of the game. So if you go and play a game of cricket, you wear these days a mouth guard and a hat and all sorts of protective gear, but you do understand that it's a game that has the potential to hurt people. The idea that you could raise your kid to think that the most important thing they could do with their life is fart carbon dioxide fumes all around the world, go on to play with some Indian cricket team and then come back and play for an Australian cricket team and go and play cricket here, go and play cricket there. He might have been a nice bloke, but he was raised to think that a lot of frivolous bullshit mattered. And before he could grow old enough to realise what a crock of shit that was, he got taken off the playing field when he was right at the peak of innocence and happiness and everything was going as well as it could be for him. It's sort of like somebody who's just finished medical school and they've grown up in a sheltered environment and they've studied so hard they didn't notice anything bad that went on in life while they were at university, and they fall asleep driving home after graduation ceremony and hit a tree and die before they can get immersed in the underfunded casualty system as a first-year intern. It's strange how sometimes the old cliche that only the good die young means that they never get a chance to, you know, go on and become any less good. But other than that, yeah, the Liberal Party is on the nose right across Australia. They just set a new record for having a one-term government in Victoria. Everything Tony Abbott touches is turning to shit in front of his face. Campbell Newman, the human hemorrhoid, sitting up there looking at a damage bill of $140 million from a 2 supercell thunderstorm impact on southeast Queensland and Brisbane. And, you know, it's only November, like the storm season's barely yet begun. So, yeah, the weather gods hate everybody who forgot to vote Green. And, you know, I had 13 millimetres yesterday, all told. I'm absolutely bloody delighted. We're getting close to the upload limit, so I guess that's all I can say to you on my 2 video coverage of Outsider's First Dog and a Warble rant. Hope you have a nice week. I'm looking forward to a good one. Warble's on a lot of YouTube. Ciao.